Good morning. This is Tiva with Positive Mind Frame. Clock in with me and get your mind sane. You got to forgive me. I wasn't able to do a video yesterday, so I'm doing it this bright, early Independence Day. I don't even think it's 5 a.m. yet, but like I said on the last video, I wake up every morning with the goal of running a 5K. So that is why you kind of see me in my workout gear and I look a mess because I don't look great on a treadmill. All right, and as always, anything that I say that penetrates your heart, that drops into your spirit, please drop this emoji right here. When you drop this emoji, it lets me know that what I am saying is of value to you, and I appreciate it. And also, it puts you into a drawing. We'll be having a drawing on July 17th for individuals that have dropped this emoji right here into the comments, and one lucky winner would receive some of Positive Mind Frame merchandise. I think Ebony can insert a picture right here of what you would be winning, and I would be personally buying that and sending that out to you. So definitely drop this emoji right here. Well, if many of you have been watching us, you know that my topics are usually in direct correlation to what Ebony talked about. She spoke about on Monday her process in positive thinking. And my topic today is going to be your purpose is in the process. Okay, if you have not watched Ebony's video, My Purpose in Positive Thinking, you need to check that out. Again, mine is called The Purpose is in the Process. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is kind of listening to her video and because of who I talk with. I talk with a lot of women and you know, I'm also an employer. I've had some women on my team and yeah, so I wanted to talk about the process. The purpose is in the process. Now, if I was to sit down with you, transparency moment for you, would you tell me, Tiva, it's all bad? You know, I've heard that. Tiva, I'm going through so much. Tiva, you don't even know half of it. Would that smile quickly turn to a frown and the waterworks would happen if I just asked you about your life? And 9 times out of 10, that has happened to me. I deal with a lot of women. I talk to a lot of women, and it's usually going from everything is great, you know, that how's everything going? Good, great. To, well, tell me what's really going on. Oh, Tiva, it's all bad. The waterworks start happening. I don't talk to men at all. That's a violation against my marriage, so I don't do that. But I do talk to a lot of women that just say, you know, it's all bad. But again, I understand the purpose is in the process. Take 6. Girl, I didn't say the last video, so I had to erase it, girl. I didn't even say, I just was start talking and stuff. I was like, I don't even know what video this is. So it's important I say, take 6. Okay. Anyway. So transparency moment for me. I know Ebony was pretty transparent, so I guess I got to be transparent. I guess that's what I need to do. Anywho, so I was pregnant at 13. I was the only kid in school to be pregnant. So of course I was the topic of a lot of discussions and teachings from most of the teachers. And that is when I learned how to have a voice with adults. Be respectful, but still have a voice. Like, I'm not your topic. Like, you had a whole agenda and school plan before I came to school. So don't let me be your topic. But neither here nor there. Had my baby at 14, and by the time I was 22, I had 5 kids. And when I tell you, I wanted to be the difference than most of the mothers that I got to see that were older than me, that was the process. That was the starting of a whole Tiva that you see today. Perfect? No, absolutely not. But I'm pretty proud of this Tiva, I must admit. Because I know who I am. And I think that's what our society needs. We need individuals that know who they are, that they have asked themselves the 5 big questions that I will reveal in the next couple of minutes, that know who they are, that are not afraid to be who they are and say it without apology. Well, having kids young, it made me realize I had to do more than what I seen. I had a single mom who worked her hiney off, but she only had 2 kids. But I don't know where these 5 came from. But I just wanted to do something different. I didn't want my kids to experience not that I had a bad life, but I didn't want them to be like the kids that I seen. Yes, you're coming from a single mom, but I'm going to, well, excuse me, not a single mom, a young mom. I was married at 19. So um, you're coming from a young parents, but we wanted something different for our kids. And I remember a family member had a child very young, and the same age as me, 14, but she was younger than me. And I asked her, because she was pretty out there. She was wild. You know, she would have her child kind of to and fro. And so I asked her, I said, what do you want for your daughter? And she looked at me. Now, mind you, we're pretty much the same age. We're still in the same boat. And she looked at me and she said, you know, I want her to have a great life. And I asked her, because I've always been very inquisitive, well, if you want her to have a great life, why aren't you showing her that? And I remember she looked at me in my eyes and she said, you know, I think that's when prayer comes. That's when I need to pray more so she can have a better life. Not that she was intending on changing her life, but she just wanted her child to have a better life, of course, like what mother wouldn't. But she didn't think she can be the difference for her child. And I believe that we're in a society that believes that they're not the difference. I believe that because I just seen in the news that just last week, there was 47,000 new cases of HIV infected individuals just in Houston. And I really believe that has happened because no one believes they can be the difference. There are 5 questions that you should ask yourself. I'm going to look down because I researched these. These are not my questions, but I researched them, and I think they're very good questions. Number 1 is, where did I come from? Where did I come from? I think that is the most valuable question because it all starts about where you came from, right? Number 2, who am I? I think that's a harder question when you don't know who you are. But it is a question to ask. I think it's maybe the finish line question. But who knows? Number 3, why am I here? I think that's really good. I think that is really, really good. Number 4, how should I live? Really good question. And number 5, where am I going? I really love those questions. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my process and how these questions came to play. Now, again, I did tell you I had 5 kids, early 22. Now, I have to admit, I did not know anything about Tiba. I spent most time with Tiba. I knew what I didn't like about Tiba. I knew what pissed Tiba off, so to speak, and I knew what Tiba liked. And again, I'm 22 years old. I'm still young. So if you're younger than 22 and watching this, or older than 22, hopefully you can relate. But, you know, I just wanted to live life. Everybody was doing things, and I wanted to do things too, besides probably Ebony. Anywho, but yeah, I wanted to do things. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a little different, considering I did have Ebony so young, and my son pretty young. I had them young. And I was still in school. I had 2 kids at 16, but I wanted to be different, and I didn't know how to do that. I didn't see anything different, but I wanted to be different. I wanted to be different. My mom invited me to go to a church, and it was good. I loved it. It was amazing. The pastor was amazing. But what I seen of people that went to church, I didn't want any parts of. I just didn't. I could tell you some stories, but I did not want that. But you know, it was actually my kids that kept saying, hey, can we go back to church? Can we go back to church? And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, because I wanted different for them. But it was a good place to be. It just, I didn't want any parts, because I never been a part of a church. And from the examples that I got of Christians or individuals that believed in God, it just, like I said, it was all bad. So we started to go, and I have to be honest, in school, I was in a lot of special ed classes, especially when it came to reading. Not because I could not read, it's just because I skimmed and didn't want to read. So I did not really understand this Bible thing. I couldn't read it. I couldn't purge it. I couldn't digest it. I couldn't do any of that because I really didn't know how to read it. I knew how, especially when it's a King James Version, whoever can read that, honey, baby, kudos to you. So I started reading the children's Bible to my kids, and while they were off doing their own thing, I would read that children's Bible to just kind of get familiar. And I wanted to sound like I was educated, although I wasn't in the Bible. I did that just so I can get some learn. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know about this God person, because if I'm going to do this church thing, if I'm going to do this God thing, I want to be real with it. I think, honestly, society sees enough fake Christians, and I just didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be, first of all, I didn't want to be, something was wrong about being called a Christian. Yeah, I wanted to know it for real. And if that's just reading the children's Bible to myself, because I don't think I was intellectually ready for the big boy, not the King James. I'm not there yet. I still won't be there. But I just felt like it was elevation to elevation. So I wanted to just be something different, give my kids a different experience, give my husband a different experience, although I've never seen it, just being honest. But then I remember praying to God out of this children's Bible that, I want to know who I am. I don't want to give my kids what I see. I don't like this Tiba. I know there's more in me. There's so many layers to me, and yet I want to know who I am. And so when I said that very first question, where do I come from? That's so good, because when I asked God that, now maybe he did answer, but I didn't have the ear to hear yet, if that makes sense. But I remember hearing about my childhood. So many memories about my childhood came to play. Where did I come from? Did I have the greatest background? Absolutely not. But what was revealed to me in the days of revisiting my childhood is that was my childhood. It was not my now. And I say that so much so because when I talk to people, this, again, I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about you. The very first thing that I usually hear about is their childhood. This is what happened to me, and I can't get over that. And I believe, definitely, if you believe in therapists, you need to go to therapy. If you are stuck there, because I have seen lots of people stuck there. Go to therapy. Do whatever you need to do to transition out of that childhood trauma. Because childhood trauma is real. It is definitely real. There's some things that you just can't get over. But I will say what God said to me is that when you're a child, you think as a child. And when you pull away those childish things, those foolish things, and yes, maybe somebody else violated you, somebody did something to you as a child, but now as an adult, you know right from wrong. This is how God talks to me. I'm sorry. I wish it was nicer. But believe me, this is how he talks to me. Like, okay, you know right from wrong. Get it together. This is what he says to me. So I'm just saying what he says to me. But I can't, if I want to be who God has called me to be, I have to get over the things that tried to kill me. And we can stay in a place that has killed us spiritually for so long that it becomes habitual, that you stay there and don't learn who you really are, instead of using that thing as the foundation, as the thing that catapulted you into adulthood and also helped you in your journey or your process of your purpose. I talk to women because I know what it's like to have a baby at 13 years old, or I know what it's like to be touched by someone inappropriately. I know what it's like, and I think it's relatable. We could sit down, we can talk about it, and I believe that we can overcome it. But sometimes I'm the only one that believes that. I have had individuals that have been touched from age 6 to age 9, and I'm sitting with a 40-year-old individual that still talks about that time period. And it's hurtful. You can still see the hurt. There's tears. There's definitely emotion, and rightfully so. That's terrible. But you're 40 now. How do we overcome this? Who are you talking to prevent this? Or are you just telling us what happened to you? And I think that's why I am who I am today, because I have no problems in saying this is what happened. This is how I overcome. And it might not be your testimony on how you do things, but it's the process of your purpose. You don't just go through stuff just because. You go through it so you can talk about it, to come out of it, to pull other individuals out of it. That's what I believe. And that's why I believe that number one question, where did I come from? That's so important. Why am I here? Am I here just to, I don't want to be here. If I'm going to be here 120 years of my life, according to the Bible, I don't want to be here stuck in my childhood. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be stuck in a traumatic experience that was maybe for a few weeks, if that, or a few years, and yet live the rest of my years thinking about those years. I want them, you can use every experience as a teaching experience, or you can use it as your death sentence. And when I mean your death sentence, you can walk around and being spiritually dead, and I choose not to do that. I choose not to allow any traumatic experience to define me. I use it to educate me. And I think we are in a society that does not use education. They don't ask questions. You know, I remember my very first boyfriend, he broke up with me because he said, "You ask too many questions." And I was like, huh? Like, but you're young, so it is what it is. And, you know, my kids will tell me, Ebony's good for telling me, well, I just didn't want all the questions. Well, I think as many layers as it is to individuals, you have to ask the questions. And I think this is why we can have the case of Houston and so many HIV cases, is because we're just talking about sex. Let me just put out there, we're just talking about sex. And there's no questions being asked. Like, I don't understand why people don't ask questions. But yeah, I don't, yeah, it throws me through a loop. People do not ask questions. Questions that can hinder you, that can catapult you, I don't know. How do you know how to get into a situation with someone if you don't ask questions? That throws me through a loop. Anywho, I remember when I asked God about that. Like I said, I didn't hear him audibly, but it was just where I needed to visit my childhood. I did that for a couple of days. And then I remember there was a time that I heard, or maybe I even believed, that I just had to shut up. Because baby, I would just, my mouth, when Ebony talks about the power of the mouth is life and death, baby, do not cross Tiba. Now, mind you, I was young. I was young. But my mouth was atrocious. It was just, oh my gosh. And I think about it today and like, Lord Jesus, I remember oh gosh, I can't even believe I'm going to tell you guys this, but I had to be 11 and we had just moved to the projects. And I didn't want to move to the projects just because of what I heard about the projects. And I was outside playing, trying to make some friends. And there was this grown woman that came down the hill. and she started cussing out these kids that was messing with her child. Now, mind you, I've never been a trouble starter. I've never been a bully. So I don't know where Ebony and my kids got that from, being a bully, but I've never been a bully. But I was playing with those kids, and I didn't see them bullying this kid. I didn't see that. I didn't get the privilege to see that. But she came down and she started just going off on these kids. And now, mind you, she had to be maybe 30 something, and we are 11, 12. And she comes down and she starts talking about A, B, C, D, you're messing with my daughter, and this, and I seen you. And so she points to me. And mind you, I didn't really know I had a voice. And I seen you too. You were talking SHIT about my daughter. And I'm like, ma'am, no, you didn't. Now, I did have some morals. My mom didn't play that. But I was like, you didn't see me because I just came outside. No, I seen you. You're nothing but a little liar. And so, baby, when I say I discovered I had a mouth, they went and got my mama. They didn't know my mama from a can of paint, but they knew I lived in that apartment. And my mama had to come get me, because I think me and that woman, now I think about it, 11-year-old and this 30-year-old just going back and forth. And I didn't even know I had that in me. So I was like, oh, that's dangerous. But yeah, and I remember a couple of days later, I was on the school bus with the little girl, the daughter. And she said, well, I don't like you because you got my mama out. And she was in the house crying. Boo. Yeah. Yeah, so anywho, this is when I discovered I had a mouth. And so when I really felt God was telling me to shut up for a while, I think that was the best time of my life. I got to see so much. I got to see how people responded. I got to see how people just interacted. I got to see so much. It was maybe a few years of silence. When I say silence, I remember being on a field trip with my church, and someone asked me, Tiba, why are you so quiet? And I just said, it's not time for me to talk yet. And when I say it was time for me to hush, just learn. And I think God had to do that because couldn't nobody else tell me. Like I said, I didn't hear him audibly. I just had that feeling it was time for me to shut up. And I believe that was a time that I needed to just see people. I needed to understand, because he knew he had a purpose for me, and he could not get me to that purpose if I didn't just shut up and be in the process of shutting up, But yeah, so that was a little bit of my process. I had to shut up. And so when I discovered who I was, I discovered who I was reading the Bible. Proverbs 21:22. I remember, and this had to be about 5-6 years later in my shut up period. I remember reading the Bible. I now am reading the big girl Bibles, and I read in Proverbs, and then I started reading and reading and reading. And that passage, Proverbs 21:22, was highlighted to me. My God, when I say highlight, it was, and then that is when I heard, this is you. That is who I am. Man, when I tell you, I had to look up the word sage. I'm like, what is a sage? And you keep talking about me. You won't even let me really talk. But yeah, he wouldn't let me talk. But how am I going to do this? How am I going to? How? I didn't even know what a sage was. I had to go to the dictionary and find out what the heck is a sage, and why me? I haven't talked to forever. What on earth do I need to do? So that is when I'm partnered up with some individuals that had this huge idea on spiritual precipitation, just kind of refreshing women that have been overworked. And so I said, okay, I'm all about it. Well, guess what, Tiba? Now you're your speaker. What? Who's speaking? God won't let me speak. Like, what? And I remember I spoke, And my goodness, it seemed like the whole room just shook. It was crazy. And then I got a speaking engagement at the YMCA, speaking to their women about careers. And I remember this one woman, now that I think about it, I wonder why she was even there, but she had to be in her 70s, a 70-year-old woman. And I was talking about careers and purpose. And she walked up to me, and in her very frail voice, she said, "I've never heard a Black girl talk like you talk." And I loved it. And although I think, it was a little offensive, it motivated me. Like, oh, wait, maybe there is some truth to this thing. So uh, then I was like, okay, I need to work on my confidence, just as I am. And so what did I do? I went and did the unthinkable. I became a plus size Zumba instructor. Yeah. When I tell you about confidence, dancing in front of individuals, and I enjoy it. I definitely enjoy it, and I can do it in my sleep. I've always loved to dance. But I think God had me in that season for confidence. I went to a place that no other instructors was teaching at. I was teaching at the library. And I remember it was just me and Ebony in the class. It was just me and Ebony. And, and people would come in, they were like, "Oh, is she the instructor?" "No, I'm the instructor." It's like, "Oh, okay." And eventually it was a huge class. I made it on the news. I was in the newspaper, and I just got so many accolades. And I think that was to build my confidence. It wasn't for me to stay there. Although I enjoy it. Like I said, I do it today, but it's still in my process, and it's still my purpose. Proverbs 21:22. And when people look at me, they automatically say, "Oh, I can do it because she's doing it." But yeah, I'm out of that season of being the plus size instructor. So that is why I get up and work my butt off. And so let's put those 5 questions up that I talked about. Where did I come from? I gave you a little bit of my backstory. And I use that as a foundation. I didn't use it as now my life. Who am I? Again, I think that question should be asked last. But now I know I'm Proverbs 21:22. Why am I here? I'm here to change the trajectory of some women's lives. I know that. And to go into their atmosphere and tear down the things that they believe. And I can only do that on the foundation of truth. I can't do that on what I believe, my opinion, because opinions change. And when people say, "I'm just keeping it real," just keeping it 110% real, your reality is not everybody's reality. So you have to stand on the foundation of truth. So how should I live? This, again, I think is a good question when you're asking yourself the big 5, but you have to know who you are in order to do that. How should I live? I know that I am the difference, that I should not be in some situations. I just should not be. I know that I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and some of the things that the society is doing, I can't live like that because of my purpose. And where am I going? I'm going to the top. Everything that I do, I'm going to go to the top in it. I'm not going to sit by and just pussyfoot and let everybody else just trample over me. Unless it's, no, ain't no unless. I don't even know what I was going with that. But all I know is I'm going up from here. I know that I am going to be at the top of my mountain because that's what I do. Everything that I do, I either shoot for the stars or I don't shoot at all. And I think that's what you need to do. You're in the process of learning your purpose too. If you don't already know it, you're in the process. Take some time to learn you. Not what your body likes. "Oh, I like it when he do." Don't nobody care about that. Learn you. And if this is a mommy moment. And if all you got to talk about with him is sex, if that's all you got to talk about, you are robbing yourself. If all his conversation is just about what that mouth do and A, B, C, and D, you're robbing yourself. Lady, I know there's so many layers to you. So many layers. And if that's the only one you talking about, girl, he ain't it. He ain't it. And you need to sit down somewhere and learn you, because okay, another transparency moment. Maybe a little bit too much, but all sex gets old. So you ain't that good, girl. Sit down. It ain't that good. Anywho, I'm gonna get off of here because I gotta run. I gotta get on this treadmill. I've been with y'all too long, and I'm talking myself out of it, but I'm gonna do it. And yeah. So again, I want you to know that you are loved, you are valued, and you are enough. Again, I hope you drop those emojis down there in the comments. This is a pretty longer emojis down there, so you could be entered into the contest. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. And I will be on here Wednesday, no more Thursday. I'm a woman of my word. And so, love you. See you Wednesday.